Well, hello everyone again.
Hi, Savita.
Hi, Congressman. So good to see you.
You too. You too.
See you. Well, thank you to everybody for being here. I know these are very strange and demanding times, and I'm so very grateful and appreciative that everybody could make it. There's such a big part of me that wishes we could be doing this event in the old-fashioned way, face-to-face. But the silver lining of doing it online is that it means that the congressman can join us, can zoom in from where he is in Washington, D.C., thousands of miles away. It's been a busy week on the Hill, and Congressman, we've been catching you all over MSNBC this past week. You've been crushing it on the Judiciary Committee with several excellent lines of questioning. You're making your constituents proud, sir. Thank you for being here. So glad you could join us today. We have a stellar panel of parents and providers lined up for today's discussion on childcare. And I want to do three things before I get out of the way and make room for all of our amazing panelists. So thing number one, we're doing this event online and all of us have different amounts of familiarity with Zoom. So there are just a few norms that I want to go over. Maiva has them up on the screen as well. So first things, we're muting all participants to make sure everybody can hear and there's no background noise. All the interactions are also going to take place on the chat. There are going to be folks that are monitoring the chat window the whole time. So if you have a question or if you have a comment, just drop it into the chat and people will pick that up and bring it up during the Q&A. So those are just a couple of the basic norms. Thing number two, I'm gonna kick us off with a lightning round of introductions so you know exactly who's on the panel. I'm gonna call on the panelists in the order in which they'll be appearing, and I'm gonna invite each panelist to say their name, say the names and the ages of the children in their care, and if it is appropriate, also say what organization you're representing. I'm gonna go first. My name is Savita Murthy. I am the mother of a beautiful 4-year-old named Avinash. I'm also the executive director of Tandem Partners in Early Learning. We're a nonprofit that's based here in the Bay Area. Our mission is to provide high quality early learning resources to children and families. And we do that in partnership with organizations like Kidango and school districts like the Hayward Unified School Districts. And now I'm going to turn it over to our panelists. Marfelia, will you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Marfelia Gomez and I am a mother of 2 children, a boy who is 7-year-old and a daughter that she's 5 years old. And she's currently attending Emerald Vista here at Dublin, California. Thank you.
Thank you, Marfelia. Scott, could you unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, my name is Scott Moore. I'm CEO of Kidango. I have a 15-year-old son who is now 6'4" and almost 200 pounds, so he doesn't feel like my son anymore. And since we're in shelter in place, I'm the only person that he can tackle. So yeah, I'm a little banged up these days. Kidango is the largest childcare and preschool organization in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're a nonprofit. We serve 4,000 low-income children and their families every day. And we have an amazing staff of 600 folks who do an incredible job helping to ensure that children are ready for success in school and life.
Thank you, Scott. Veronica?
Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica Gonzalez. I have 2 children. My daughter, Christina, is 18 years old, and my youngest son, Adrian, is 4 years old. They both attended to Kidango Center, the one that is in Union City, Decoto, and that's pretty much. Only 2 children.
Thank you, Veronica. Christina Adams from Hayward Unified.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Adams. I have a 27-year-old, and I'm glad that she is not choosing to tackle me, Scott, although she could. But she actually attended Kidango when she was in a school-age program many, many years ago. I am the Director of Early Learning Programs for Hayward Unified School District here in the Bay Area. And we serve state preschool primarily. Also, if we have a family child care network and a teen parent program at one of our comprehensive high schools.
Thank you, Christina. Asia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Asia Cannon, and I have 3 kids. 2 of them are currently enrolled with Kidango. I have a 3-year-old. She'll be 4 in September. And I have a 2-year-old. She just turned 2 last weekend. So her name is Perry, and my oldest daughter, her name is Bailey.
Thank you, Asia. Congressman, you're up next.
Well, thank you, Savita. Thank you to our panelists. And these are certainly really trying times. And I think anyone who has children right now, it is doubly trying. One, to keep your children developing, to keep them learning, to keep them entertained, but also to keep yourself working and able to provide. And it's incredibly challenging for parents right now. There's so much uncertainty around what is ahead and what we can do about it. I have a 3-year-old and a daughter who will be 2 in the early fall, and we saw a drop off, especially with the 3-year-old, developmentally once the pandemic started and he couldn't go to preschool anymore, and things like potty training and communication. And so it's been a real challenge for families right now. I just want to tell you what we've done in Congress. We've recently passed the Child Care is Essential Act, which provides $50 billion in grant funding to all child care providers to stabilize the child care sector and provide and give support to providers to reopen and operate. And we've been pressing the Senate to pass this because it's been passed in the House, but we need a Senate vote for it to happen. Also, we need the HEROES Act, which has been passed in the House, to get an audience in the Senate, because that provides, in addition to child care funding, state and local governments with $1 trillion in funding that they are now seeing as a deficit in their states because of the pandemic. Also, it would extend unemployment benefits until the end of the year. So I want to learn from you. I'll be back home next week, and we're going to be doing a roundtable with parents around what the fall is going to look like. But this is a great opportunity with so many parents and providers on the line to just hear from you, what you see the future looking like, and what do I need to know to effectively help us find a way through. And again, just want to thank you for serving our kids during this very trying, anxiety-ridden time for parents, and really open to any ideas you have on how we can make it better and make sure that they come out, learning, developed, entertained, and ready for what's ahead in their lives.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you for keeping it real. It's good to know that you're right there with all of us and that you've come as you are, and it's so delightful to hear the voices of your children in the background. We really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. I want to say just a couple of things to set the table for our discussion today before I get out of the way. Everybody in the audience knows this, just how important childcare is, but not only for our children and families because of the academic and the social benefits for children, in the likelihood that children are going to arrive in kindergarten ready to learn. Childcare is also hugely beneficial for our society. When we have quality childcare, we have positive school outcomes, we have a workforce that's ready, a stable society. So childcare is something that all Americans have a stake in, not just the Americans that have young children. But as many parents know, as I'm sure you know, Congressman, childcare is so expensive for families. And at the same time, the cost of providing care is also expensive. And what that means is that providers don't have a whole lot of buffer to deal with emergencies like the one that we're finding ourselves in right now. And so the childcare sector was a really precarious sector to begin with. And the coronavirus pandemic is just blowing the doors wide open and making things even more fragile in the childcare sector. There are just the vast majority of childcare providers have lost income during the pandemic. A lot of providers, especially the smaller family childcare providers, have not been able to pay themselves. And about a third of them have incurred credit card debt just so they can stay afloat. So as you can see, there are issues here around debt and around supporting children that intersect with issues of millennials. There are, high concentrations of millennials, both among parents as well as among childcare providers. The majority of childcare providers are also people of color, and specifically women of color. These childcare providers and childcare educators have been underpaid for decades, and many of them have put their health and their lives on the line as they've gone into work as essential workers during the pandemic. And so this is yet another instance where the impacts of COVID-19 have been borne disproportionately by communities of color. And so in the present moment that we're finding ourselves in, childcare providers are facing very high costs because of the supplies they're required to use to be in compliance with the health and safety guidelines. At the same time, physical distancing requirement means that the enrollment is dropping. So this combination of high cost and low revenue is a deadly combination. And it's likely that without public support and government support, many childcare providers run the risk of closing. And especially those childcare providers that are women and people of color and women of color, I think they run an even greater risk of closing their programs. There was a national survey conducted by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and they found that 2 out of 5 respondents and half of all minority-owned childcare providers will have to close without some kind of government support. And only 18%, that's 1 in 5 programs, said that they could last longer than a year without some form of public support. So in the last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about opening the economy. Without a robust functioning childcare system, opening the economy is a non-starter because working families need safe and affordable care options for their children so that parents can return to work. And now, even though childcare is a very critical component of the economic recovery and a very critical thread in the fabric of our society, it's not a sector that has received a whole lot of support from the government up until now, as the Congressman mentioned. Up until now, now that we're having discussions about the 2 acts that you mentioned, Congressman, Delta Airlines received more support from the government than the entire childcare sector. But we're really happy to hear about the House passing the Child Care is Essential Act that will provide $50 billion in grant money to providers, and the Child Care for Economic Recovery Act that's going to provide assistance to providers as well as to families. And so, Congressman, we're so grateful to you for voting in favor of both these measures. We're also glad, hopeful, optimistic that you're going to continue supporting these childcare relief efforts and that you're going to be a loud and vocal champion for childcare relief in these ongoing and upcoming efforts. So the stories you're about to hear from the parents and the providers, these are your constituents. And I hope that's something that you can take back to Congress, you can take back to the Hill as you're fighting and advocating for us. So without much ado, I'm going to turn it over to Marfelia. Marfelia, will you unmute yourself and take the floor, please?
Yes. Hello, once again, my name is Marfelia Gomez, and my daughter is currently attending Kidango at Emerald Vista Center, Dublin, California. My children have been in this center for about 3.5 years. Kidango has been an excellent program for my 2 children. Kidango has given us a lot of support in the times we needed the most. During the time the center was closed due to the COVID-19, it was a challenge for me to keep my daughter focused on a simple task or Zoom class. There were days that I was unable to connect her because I had my son's classes at the same time. During this pandemic, This has been one of the most difficult times in life for my family. During that time, my husband lost his job. We were in difficult days when we had to decide about buying food or paying the rent, which recently increased. On April 14, I received a text message from the director of Emerald Vista Center, Mrs. Vicky. She provided me information for the grab and go program that they organized during the time the center was closed. The food that was provided by the program was a blessing for my family. My children had apples and oranges and much more to eat every day. My family will be forever grateful to Kidango. I have always believed in the importance of childcare at an early age, with learning programs such as those offered by Kidango. But I never imagined that they will help us as much as providing food for families, which is a basic need. I hope government increase funding for childcare, which is most needed during this pandemic, for the center to be able to continue operating in a clean, sanitized environment, and with enough help for the teachers to be recognized with good salaries. They have been brave and have shown that they have passion to teach and care for our children, risking their own health. I just want to thank the Congressman Eric for taking the time to listen to our stories and hopefully can make a good change for our centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Marfelia. And are you at when you say Emerald Vista, are you talking about right across the street from Camp Parks?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
There.
And you live there?
Yeah, we live here in Dublin, so yeah.
I grew up in Dublin, and I was on the city council when we voted to redevelop Emerald Vista. It was, I don't know if you remember or if you're around, it was Arroyo Vista, and then we redeveloped that area, and I'm glad to hear that Kidango is there and was able to help. And I just put in the chat box, if everyone can see it, my email address. If anyone has any specific issues that you want to follow up, if you don't want to bring it up on a Zoom, just follow up with me and I'll make sure that we do all we can to help.
Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you so much, Marfelia. And thank you, Congressman, for sharing your contact information. I hope people will take you up on your offer for support. Scott, you are the CEO of a center-based agency. What's your perspective?
Thank you, Savita, and thank you, Marfelia, for your sharing your experience and then also your kind words. Yeah, I mean, Representative Swalwell, it's been a very intense time, right? You know, when Friday, you know, the infamous Friday, the 13th of March, 2020, when all of our school districts in the Bay Area essentially decided to shut down. You know, I got a call from a couple of superintendents where we, you know, provide all the preschool in their districts, saying that we decided that we would follow suit. And that just, you know, created a huge cascade of effects, both on families and staff. You know, we closed the Monday following that Friday, but also began providing grab and go meals that same day. So, you know, we shifted our services from providing family style meals in classrooms to grab and go meals that people picked up and created a safe way of doing that. And then a week after that, we reopened a handful of our centers to provide emergency childcare for healthcare workers, first responders, and the like, in partnership with hospitals and county governments here in the Bay Area. And then, you know, as things got a little bit better, we were able to open back up all of our childcare centers in June and July. So we're actually now operating all 52 of our centers. You know, and I think what's really important to understand is, the needs of our families are just extraordinary. And I think that that's the experience that the whole country has.
May I ask,
yeah.
on the centers, what is the capacity limits that you have for each center for number of children?
Yeah, so right now it's essentially at half of what we typically have. So a typical preschool class size is 24 children, and now we're able to serve 12. So
I asked because my son is in he's in a summer day camp with about the same size. I think it's 11 or 12. And I think the parents are all mindful of what it means to put your kid in an environment like that like you have to be extra responsible yourself in what you do, because you know that you send your kid there, and if he transmits it, you're exposing a lot of people.
Right.
And, knock on wood, we've not had any incidents. We were notified a couple of weeks ago that like a sibling of one of the kids had a fever. The kid was not going. And then like 2 days later, we were notified that it was a negative test. And I feel like they've taken a lot of steps to make us feel comfortable so that they can stay open and that we can have two, working parents. But I guess, have you seen any like spread at any of your centers? And I only ask that because I've also been told by our county health officer in Alameda County that the science he sees suggests that although children can get COVID, that they are not the same type of spreader as, say, a teenager or anyone else. He thinks the jury's still out, but that's the early science that he's seen.
Yeah, so we certainly do see the spread of COVID. And I would say at any one time of our 52 centers, on average, 1 or 2 of them is closed due to quarantine. So that's, either a parent or a staff member has been exposed to COVID or tested positive, and we need to shut down, including Emerald Vista experienced that a few weeks ago. And, that's when everyone needs to get tested. And we have to see what those results are. Fortunately, of all the staff and families who have gotten tested, it's all been negative. So our experience to date has been, I think, a fortunate one, but it's absolutely scary. What we're struggling with the most right now is the lack of access to testing and then the speed by which we get the results. So I'm sure you're hearing a lot of that. I would just put in a plug that for childcare, when we have to shut down, it's not just the 3 teachers who are, having to stay at home in quarantine. It's all those parents too. So you're talking about, 15 jobs being put on hold instead of, just the 3 teachers that are there. So if there's a way to prioritize childcare for the testing and the results,
I agree. And I guess
my
question was going to, and I agree that there's obviously the spread is real, and we're seeing the numbers in Alameda and Contra Costa County as high as they've ever been. But have you seen any evidence, though, that there was a transmission because like student A at Kidango transmitted to student B, and student B took it back to their family? Or
yeah, none at all.
Okay,
none at all. So yeah, so we've had sort of the one exposure, which is brought into the center, but then it hasn't spread, and it hasn't spread to any of our staff, and it hasn't spread to any of our children or families. So that's the really good news. And certainly I think it's a testament to the incredible amount of cleaning and distancing and other protocols, wearing face masks and the like, that have been put in place to ensure that we limit the spread to the greatest extent possible.
Great. That's very helpful to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to quickly finish, I just want to say, our families, when COVID first hit, the number one request for help that we got was to help them fill out unemployment paperwork, right? So that just gives you the extent of the severe impact on people's ability to just have a roof over their heads and food on the table. But then, you know, starting really in June, we started to hear more and more, hey, we can go back to work, but we need childcare. And so that's why we opened back up and we're able to do so. And we're operating now in a way that we feel is safe. But at the same time, you know, we're only able to serve half the number of children. So there's still a lot of families out there that have a need that we're not able to serve. And then just last but not least, I just want to put a plug in for our staff. I mean, you know, when you think about who the heroes are in this pandemic, I don't think we should forget about, you know, our childcare workers. They are on the front lines, just like everybody else, doing incredible work, serving children and families. When we first came back and provided emergency childcare through private fundraising, we were able to offer them hazard pay of $20 an hour in addition to what they typically got paid. So for a couple months there, we were able to actually, you know, pay them a little bit more, about closer to what they're worth. But I would just say the fact that, you know, a preschool teacher makes half of what a K-12 teacher makes is something that we absolutely have to change in this country. Their job is as important, if not more important. So that's all I have to say. Want to be able to hand it over to more families and providers.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much, Scott. The childcare sector is one of the most diverse sectors in education. I believe that the educators do probably one of the most important jobs in our society, which is that of educating our next generation. I want to make sure we have time to hear from the other panelists that are here. So Veronica, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, hello everyone again. Once again, my name is Veronica Gonzalez. I have two children. One daughter, my daughter Cristina, is 18 years old, and my son Adrian is 4 years old. They both attend to Kidango Dakota Center, the one that is in Union City. I have been enrolled with Kidango for more than 10 years. This program had helped me a lot when my children assist in their program and when I used to be a teacher there too. Thanks to Kidango, I had the opportunity to go to school and get two majors, one as a preschool teacher and the other one on a business. Now with this pandemic and many centers closed, Kidango's closed, I am facing many challenges. For example, I just graduated last year and I cannot start my career because I'm afraid to leave my son with other people because of this pandemic around. Also, my son has a speech problem. Without school, he cannot practice or socialize his speech with his friends at school as before. My other concern is that he just wants to be eating and watching TV. Even though I encourage him to go play with me, but he's not interested to play with me. He very often asks me, Mommy, when I'm going to back to school, I want to go and see my friends. That's really sad for me. So I have to explain him what is all around. And I telling him that he's going to go soon. He's going to go soon. So I know that Kidango has a few centers open, but as Scott was saying that they have very few kids. So my son couldn't get in because I'm not working, but I'm willing to go work, start my career. So I would like that Kidango had the opportunity to have more centers open so they can have more space for more kids. I'm endowed with Kidango because when my daughter was little, I was a single mother and I have no parents here, no family here in the United States. So I think Kidango did a really great job because he supported me to take care of my daughter while I'm going to school or going to work. So for me, Kidango is one of the best part of my life. And I just want to, I wish that the Congress can give funds and they can open other centers so we can have the opportunity to go back. So I don't feel comfortable to just live with other people, my son. I know that Kidango is very professional because I used to be a teacher there and I know how they take care of safety for the kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Veronica. And How old did you say your little boy is?
He's 4 years old.
4 years old.
Yeah, he had a problem, a speech problem, and Kidango did help him a lot. They have a speech therapy there, and they did help me a lot. Now he's doing well, but he's always asking me when I'm going back to school. Sometimes we go by their school, and he's like, I want to go there. I'm gonna go. We just see their friends and say hi. By just on our way, we don't get down to the school. And it's sad because he's sad. He's like, I want to go back to my school. I want to go. He named all his friends. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna see them soon. You're gonna go see them soon.
What's his name?
Adrian.
Adrian. Okay.
Yes.
Well, wish Adrian well for me, and I know it's important to him. It's important to me, and it's especially important to his mom that we do this as soon as we can.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Our next parent and panelist is Asia. Asia, could you unmute yourself and take the floor, please, and tell us about your experience?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Asia Cannon. I have 2 daughters that have attended Kidango since October of 2019. Kidango has been nothing short of a blessing for me and my kids. As a single mother, the cost of childcare has been my biggest struggle to maintaining consistent employment. But since Kidango, that has all changed for me. As we entered the scary and uncertain time of this pandemic, my employment was compromised once again because my children could not attend daycare. Understandably so, because the health and wellness of my kids are my first priority. A few months into the pandemic, we found out that Kidango would be opening to essential workers. And I was so relieved because I could go back to work. At that time, bills and rent were becoming very overwhelming. And although I was so thankful, I was also met with fear every time I took my daughters to school. Fear that our teachers and our staff would not have the supplies needed to care for my children or for themselves during this pandemic. And fear that because of this lack of financial support, that we would be shut down yet again, and that I would lose my job again. This is the struggle that I'm all too familiar with, and it brings a lot of anxiety and stress to families that we shouldn't have to bear while we're raising our children. You know, our children is our next generation; they're our future, and I think happy families raise happy children, and happy children have room to become successful adults. So I ask you to think really hard about our future generation and the environment that we're shaping for them today. Is it a healthy environment? Is it a safe environment? Is it a happy environment? And is it consistent and stable for our kids? I feel like you have the opportunity to provide this environment. With all of our help, we have the opportunity to provide this environment for all of our children and our families. And I'm just asking that you would consider this deeply when making your decisions in the future, and think about, you know, the choices that you would want made also for your children. I know you mentioned that you have them children as well. So, you know, it's always a team effort, and we just want, you know, all of our kids to be able to be start off successful and have a successful start to life. And that's what childcare really does provide for us, because it helps us families to be able to provide that structure, and it helps, the structure does help our children. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Asia.
Welcome.
Christina, would you say a few words about what it's like to be running early learning programs at Hayward Unified?
Thank you. I'd be happy to. I hope that my sound is not creating problems. I'm having a hard time hearing, and I have to say it's quite comical because the situation is due to the Chromebooks that we have for our staff.
Savita, I'm not able to hear Christina.
Yeah,
And
Christina,
one of the
we're not
issues
able to
that
hear you
we've
very well.
been challenged with is trying to find technology. So first, before I keep rambling, let me check and be sure that you can hear.
Christina, we're not able to hear you very well. So I think Mario and others might do a little troubleshooting with you, and we'll go to the Congressman. Congressman, could you, now that you've heard the stories of everybody, could you share some reflections and some final remarks, please?
Yeah, thank you again, Savita. And Christina, my email is in the chat box, so please share with me what is not convened here.
If you can hear that.
I'm still hearing Christina come through, so maybe there's like a delay on her audio. But so Christina, please share with me by email what you were sharing when the audio was not working. But Savita, thanks for convening all this together. I think I have an even better idea of what childcare means to the people who I represent. And I am uniquely, as I mentioned, aware of this issue. And I thank Scott as well for sharing with me about what's going on at the centers, because I think there's any silver lining at all in this virus. If the science does prove true that children do not spread at as great of a rate, that gives us hope that until there's a vaccine, if we can provide you with the sanitizing materials that you need and the ability to stay open, that you can continue to provide a safe, especially as we go into flu season, environment for our kids. And then the teenagers who may spread it at a higher rate, well, at least they have better awareness of physical distancing and better able to keep their masks on. So I'm going to continue to fight for the grant funding. And Scott, also thank you for bringing up the unemployment insurance that expires today, and we need to extend that. So thank you all again. I'm sorry you're in this position. This is certainly the most trying time of any of our lives, but I am confident that our resilience, our love and kindness for each other will get us through this. And Savita, to keep me aware of what's going on in your field and how I can help. And I really do hope if any of you have a specific case, and when I mean a specific case, I don't just mean on childcare. If you have a specific case relating to immigration, if you have a specific case related to a veteran benefit, if you have a specific case related to Social Security or SSI or unemployment, send it my way, and I'll make sure that our staff takes care of it and follows up with you. We have immigration lawyers on our staff. We have people who work on all types of federal cases all the time. And if it's not a federal case, we can direct you to one of the state offices that we work with. But we want to help. We want to make it a little bit lighter of a burden as to what we're going through right now. So thank you again. Hang in there. We need you, especially our
Congressman, I know you have to go. Do you have time for one quick question before you go?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Maiva, Maiva Michelle, I know you've been monitoring the chat. Do you want to bring up one of the questions to the Congressman?
Yes, great, thank you. Thank you so much, Congressman. So one of the questions that we got, given your leadership on issues related to millennials, is this. As a parent yourself and a millennial, what is your message to other millennials who are hesitant about becoming parents due to the high cost of housing and childcare?
Yeah, I'm fighting on the issues of childcare and student loan debt. I have both of those issues in my household. Having student loan debt myself, still near 6 figures. So getting rid of that burden by bringing interest rates down to 0, allowing employers to contribute tax-free to their employees, which actually I was able to help get passed in the CARES Act, which is now the law that employers can do that. I think that is a family-friendly policy for any federal worker. It was my legislation just a couple months ago that was passed and signed into law that allows for paid parental leave if you're a federal employee. And my hope is that by doing that for the 4 million federal employees in our country, that is a first step toward having paid parental leave nationally for every employer. So I get these issues because I live these issues. So we want people to start families. Michelle, my prediction on whether there will be a pandemic baby boom or not is that if you do not have kids, there may be a boom, but nobody who has kids is adding kids to their family right now. We thought we wanted 3, and right now it's like, you know what, we're blessed with 2. How are we gonna have 3? So, but we're very grateful, as I said. In addition, after myself and my wife, you know, the most important person in my children's lives are, you know, the persons who help them at school, or in this case right now at camp. And so I'm grateful as someone who recognizes that, and I know you are too. So thank you again.
Great. And we had one more question. Lisette, are you able to unmute and ask your question briefly?
Yes. So good afternoon, Congressman. Hi, my name is Lisette Frausto. I am a mother of 2 young children, age 5 and 4. Just recently, my family and I were excluded from the first stimulus check due to our mixed family status. And I would like to ask you, how do you plan on supporting mixed families with young children?
When you say mixed family, what do you mean by that? Lisette, are you there? Hey, Lisette. When you say,
my internet connection.
That's okay. What do you mean by mixed family?
Well, my husband, with his immigration status, when we filed taxes, he does it with his ITIN number, and myself and my children were U.S. citizens. And because of that, a lot of families, like my family, were excluded from that money that we actually, you know, really need as much as other families as well.
I understand now. Sorry, because in other definitions of mixed families, we've seen issues where you have a single mother who has a partner, and their tax filing status has limited what they can receive. But in your case, it's just cruel that we did not extend this benefit, you know, to every person in our country, because you know, we know that, you know, immigrants still pay taxes. In many cases, they pay into Social Security that they'll never be able to claim. So, you know, the governor of California did extend a benefit in this regard, but it's not enough. And I can just tell you that I will continue to, you know, support legislation that draws no distinction between, you know, anyone's immigration status during a time like right now. But if you have, again, if there's something specifically you think we can help with, it's better to just ask, and we can come back and say, sorry, we can't help, than to not ask. So I do hope you'll follow up with me and take me up on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. The congressman has another meeting, but I am still on the call, as well as a few other staffers, and we will stay on till the end of this if you have any additional questions or concerns.
Great, thank you. And we're doing a shift change in our house where my wife also has a call, so
You're becoming the lead parent. We get it. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Congressman. Always a pleasure.
Yep.
Please come back and talk to us again.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So I think we have time for more questions.
Yeah. So, one of the other questions that we got that we'll just kind of put out there, and then maybe we can also open it up for other participants to unmute and ask questions, and for the Congressman staff and to pass along. But one of the questions that we got was, what are the thoughts around supporting children going back to school during the pandemic, which we touched on a little bit. And then something I see coming up in the chat is the fact that a lot of our teachers, including teachers and childcare providers, themselves have young children who need childcare. So all of these issues are so intricately connected. So why don't we go ahead and open it up for any participants who want to unmute and ask their question. And we are recording this session, and then Adiola and some of the Congressman staff are still with us. So if you have a question, please go ahead and unmute and ask your question. Otherwise, I will pull another one from the chat box.
I guess I have a question, which is, we are fortunate to have a wonderful congressman whom we just heard speak eloquently and passionately about childcare. What can we do to get more support in the Senate from people who aren't like our congressman?
So I think one thing that my boss prides himself on is, I think before this recent wave was, being one of the younger members of Congress. And, obviously the dynamics are different in the Senate because those tend to be older members, but those members still have grandkids. Like, you still know somebody affected by this system. And like, to be completely honest, I don't think it's about right or wrong. Like, we know that we need to protect, this next generation, our kids, the innocent ones. I just think it's, calling them, sending them emails. Like you said, we have Senator Feinstein and Harris. They're amazing. They're not going to be the problem. I think, not that there is like a clear problem, but it's, targeting, some of the red states, the red districts. So I think if you, work with other states or work with other, childcare programs, maybe in other states, that's always a good avenue to reaching out and ramping up support. But yes, I think, when it comes to this issue, it affects everyone. So there is a human piece to it. And so I think using your stories, especially some of the ones we've already heard, that is, I think, the best way to kind of communicate these problems.
Thank you.
Another question that we had come to us before the session was recognizing that since a lot of our K-12 school districts are not going to be reopening in person, but will be doing distance learning, that means there's a lot of kindergarten through third grade children who will be at home, but are far too young to stay by themselves or participate in unsupervised distance learning. How is Congress thinking about addressing that huge new need for childcare for young school-age children?
I think we're still trying to figure it out. I'm from Texas. My mom's actually, fifth grade teacher, and she works in Dallas-Fort Worth. So, a huge school district. And even I was talking to her the other day, and she's like, I have no idea what's going on, which is like, unfortunate, because this is like when you're getting ready for, back to school shopping and whatnot. I think kind of the same approach we have in other areas is, different plans are going to work for different areas. I think we can understand that. Right now, I don't, you know, at least in, you know, the Bay Area, you know, this is, you know, I think, you know, sending students, children back to school is just not kind of, I think, a plan right now. And I don't know when that plan will actually, you know, surface. But, you know, I think, you know, I think it's hard. I think there's lots of ideas being thrown around, you know, especially if people are starting to have to return back to work and maybe don't have the luxury of, you know, sending their kid to daycare or getting a babysitter, or, you know, even wanting to put, you know, your kids in an environment that you're not aware of necessarily what's happening. You know, my brother has, you know, I have a 1-year-old niece, and, you know, his wife, she's a nurse. My brother has been having to go back to work, and they've just been having to kind of just wing it day by day, which is like, you know, not everyone has the luxury of doing that. Like sometimes she's with her grandma. Sometimes, you know, my sister-in-law has, you know, downgraded to part-time. She's only working twice a week, but not everyone necessarily, you know, has that luxury. I'm hoping over August recess, because that's kind of, you know, our break month, you know, between the House and the Senate and, you know, Speaker Pelosi and, you know, leadership will be able to work out some ideas, you know, between us and the Senate, because obviously there's lots of opposing ideas of how we will handle this issue. I don't think, you know, the best message is necessarily coming out of the White House either.
Thank you, Adiola. We had an additional question from Nancy, if you're able to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, it shows that I'm unmuted, so hopefully you're hearing me. I'm a school board member in Santa Clara County, and I'm also serving on the LPC. And so what I want to let you know about this paradigm that parents are talking about is something that schools are experiencing too, of when we're opening even in a virtual mode, there's a need for childcare and supervision. And there are not enough places for children to be. And even if we find childcare places, the reality is, and I can speak to this as a early childcare educator, the program design is not set up for monitoring individual school classroom realities. So I would love to see a little bit more flexibility on the federal level about some additional supports and fundings for schools so that we can be co-creative with our child care providers and open up more possibilities for more spaces, being mindful that we need to keep those ratios that are currently in place for safety concerns, and to make sure that there's ongoing monies for PPE, and more importantly, that the testing that is being done is done in a timely manner. That's a system-wide issue throughout the federal landscape. And there needs to be more leadership and stepping up in making sure that there is that pipeline in testing so that we can have that reliability and fail-safe that our teaching staffs, no matter if they're center-based or in a school or in a city child care recreation program, will be able to be safe, and that families can have the perception of safety being there, even if their threshold of perception of safety is much higher even than what science is saying is the best practices. So we really need a step up and consistency of best healthcare messages, best health care practices in the testing, reliability, and turnaround time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, for those comments, and I couldn't agree more. And, you know, just going back on what the Congressman said, thank you all for all the work you're doing. It hasn't gone unnoticed. And like you know, there's no way to be compensated for what you're doing, but it is very appreciated. And just know that we're doing the best we can do out here in DC. And unfortunately, right now, it's not good enough, but, you know, we're trying, and hopefully we'll be able to find a solution that works for everyone, especially, you know, the communities that we know are being overlooked.
Definitely. And then, hello, everyone. My name is Belinda. I'm one of the staffers for the congressman here in the district. So I figured I'd just introduce myself and then also echo, you know, everything that Adiola and the congressman said. And I also just kind of wanted to touch base that, you know, I know there was some concerns that came up, and if there's anything that our office can do to support you guys here in the district, if there's any concerns that you have, or if anyone's experiencing any issues with any sort of federal agency or, you know, need some resources, feel free to reach out, and I'll put my email in the chat as well. If there's anything that our office can do to support you at this time, or if, you know, anything that we can do to help, please feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adiola and Belinda, for being here. And thank you to the rest of our participants. So we want to close out with just a quick call to action. I mean, as was mentioned, we are really fortunate to have a wonderful Congressman Swalwell, who is fighting for childcare. But we need to continue to be advocating to save childcare. And as we know, the House passed the Child Care is Essential Act and is working to get more funding for childcare, but we need continued pressure on the Senate. And our senators are doing really great work, but can always use an additional push and to highlight the importance of providing $50 billion in childcare funding. So we invite you today to contact your senators, Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein. We've provided their phone numbers on the screen to urge them in the negotiations that are going on right now over the coronavirus stimulus package to include $50 billion in childcare funding, and to continue to raise your voices and your voices and your stories to push for what we know is necessary in terms of federal support. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much to the Congressman and to his staff for being here. And we hope that everybody has a really wonderful weekend. Thank you.